This man from Augusta, Georgia was arrested after leaving his children ages 10, 6, and 1 alone at a local McDonald's while he was at a job interview. Was this the right thing to do, the wrong thing to do? Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about a father from Augusta, Georgia, who was arrested after leaving his children ages 10, 6, and 1, yes, a baby basically, alone at a McDonald's for a while he was at a job interview. Now, this has gone viral. There's a lot of discussion about it. Some say that he was wrong. Some say that he was right. Some say it's no big deal. You got the 10-year-old there, a bunch of other adults there, all this, that, and the third. Now, one thing I want to say is that this kind of thing cannot be a habit, because last time I checked, McDonald's was not a free daycare. McDonald's is a restaurant. The employees in there are working on the food. They're working on the restaurant. They're not working to take care of your kids. Now, some are not going to like that. They're going to say, oh, come on, ABL, just for a little while. You know, the adults ain't going to do nothing to the kids. Well, do you know that? How do you know those adults won't do anything to those children? These are not babysitters. These are just regular people. The employees cannot always watch what these kids are doing throughout this entire shift. You got people that's in there smoking crack. You got men trying to go into the women's restroom. You got all kind of extra stuff going on in this place where you don't have the direct adult supervision. You might have adults that just watch and see what's going on with the kids, but ultimately they are not those kids' caretakers. And also, if the 10-year-old is responsible enough to take care of a 6-year-old and the baby, then why couldn't the 10-year-old do that at home? Why not? What do y'all say? Don't open the door for nobody. Don't come to the door. I'll come back when I get back and I got the key. Do not open the door. Just stay in the house. And if you have the job interview during the daytime, wouldn't that make more sense rather than leaving them at the McDonald's? Before I go any further, let's get to a clip here. This is going to be news in Texas, okay? And they're going to talk about it a little bit. I want to play this to get some of their take, to get some of their reaction, and then I can kind of play off of that. I'll leave this and the original story in an article in the description box. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Tonight on The Factor Uncensored, a father lands in trouble. Police say he left his kids to go on a job interview. Does this case highlight problems for other parents in similar situations? A job interview ends badly for a man in Georgia. Chris Lewis was arrested March 22nd. Police say he left his kids in a McDonald's by themselves while he went to an interview for a job. He reportedly told police he did not have a car and lived nearby. Lewis said instead of making his 3 kids, who are 1, 6, and 10 years old, walk home alone, he decided to make them stay in the restaurant.
Okay, so if you don't have a car, how did you get the kids to McDonald's? Did you walk there? Did you get on the bus? If you were able to go to the McDonald's, then why not just leave the kids at home and then go on the interview? If you knew you had an interview beforehand and you had to get them something to eat, why not just have some food at the house for them to eat, feed the kids, leave the kids right there at the house, lock the door, don't open the door for nobody until I get back. Go on a job interview, come back to the house, and it's done. You're using McDonald's as a free babysitter. That's what's happening.
Been a lot and ongoing debate about this. If we can.
Now, this right here is kind of a misleading poll. Okay, look. So it says, what's the appropriate age for a child to be left unsupervised? 10 to 12, 41, 13 to 15, 39%, 16 plus, 20%. I don't understand. This is a weird poll because 16, obviously, at that point, you're pretty much an adult. 10 years old, that's right around the time I was able to kind of be a latchkey kid or whatever. Probably about 9 or 10, maybe even probably about 8, 9 or 10. But definitely 10 years old, I got a key to the house and I'm good. But there was a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old. Do you think a 10-year-old can be responsible to take care of a baby?
Our guests are here on The Factor Uncensored to talk about this. We have with us Davenport case manager Jay Bailey, therapist Dr. Bernadette Smith, and parent Matilda Saragosa. Glad to have you all on The Factor Uncensored. So, Matilda, let's begin with you as a parent. Your thoughts about this situation?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I feel there's still a lot of missing information for me to make that full assessment. Like, what was the length of time they were left alone? Were they inside of the McDonald's? Were they in the car? Can you clarify that for me really quick?
What we know is he was there from the kids were there from 4:30. He returned at 6:18. Okay. And then the mother was on the way as well, but we don't know if she was called by police or him after the fact, or if she was on the way anyway.
So about 2 hours. Like, when I read this, it said that like 30 minutes. Nah, you're talking about 2 hours. So a job interview takes that long? See, I think the job interview thing was an excuse to go do something else.
Like you said, there are still a lot of unanswered questions.
Correct. I feel like at some point we encourage the community to stay vigilant and report these incidents, and I feel like that's what they did. But at the end of it all, like, what was the backstory to it? Did he intentionally just go in there to leave an application and they asked him to stay for an interview and it prolonged the waiting period for the children? You know, were they inside or outside? Temperatures? Like, what was the damaging? If they were inside of the public setting, was it a safe setting?
I mean, come on, you know where they were at. You know they were inside the McDonald's, just sitting there at the table, and then people are like, well, why are these kids in here by themselves? Where's your parents at? They're probably asking the little kids, hey, where's your mommy, where's your daddy? Oh, I don't know. And then the police get called, and then this whole thing unfolds.
You know, there were so many things that we could still try to figure out in order to rectify or remedy the situation.
And Dr. Smith, a lot of people are cautious on how they approach this report because a lot of parents can see themselves in a situation where you don't have someone to provide for your children, or you can't afford a babysitter, and you have to provide for them, and you're caught between a rock and a hard place.
Yep. No, it's very tough, and I think that what this story is showing is when you do not have a village and when you do not have means and resources to provide for that care, what then are you doing? And so to your question, one of the things that I heard was that he left the kids in the play place. So they were playing at the McDonald's playground area. Again, was that maybe best judgment? Who knows? But what we also know, I feel it comes from a space of desperation. And so when you don't have the resources.
So here's my question. When did this desperation start? At what point in this man's life? You got 3 kids. You got a 10, 6, and 1. And those are the kids that they saw right there. It could have been some older kids somewhere else, but let's just assume he only has 3 children, 10, 6, and 1. Did you begin to have problems after the 10-year-old? How about the 6-year-old? How about the 1-year-old? At what point did your trials and tribulations begin? My point behind asking that question is to say that you need to be responsible with these kids. If you couldn't take care of the 10-year-old, how are you going to take care of 2 more?
Sources when you don't have access to a village and you're trying to further your family by getting a job and doing the things in which we're told to do in society, and then he's penalized. Again, being able to look at what resources can we then provide. Like for example, in Houston, there's the House of Tiny Treasures that provides childcare for people who are unhoused and kind of in that space.
All right, Jay, let's bring you in. Your thoughts on this as an expert looking from the outside, and your thoughts about parents who may be put in a position like this or put themselves in a position like this, depending on which way you're looking at it.
In this situation, I do think that we do need more information to properly assess his opportunities and his resources. But I do think that it takes a village, and so we need to call on our village when we do need help. And you can always contact, foster care agencies or just any social service setting that could help you in situations like that.
You know what they're saying makes sense as far as, having a village and whatnot. But here's what's really going on. This whole thing about, oh, I got a job interview, I'm leaving my kids here, I'm leaving my kids there. It's just a way for people to try and game the system. And these people, a lot of times, will do this and then have more kids. It's like, all right, you are leaving your kids at McDonald's in the play place for hours on the time, and then you got to get the police called on you. You getting kids taken away, you giving kids up for adoption, all this, that, and the third, and you keep popping out more. At a certain point, where is the responsibility of the parents? Everybody talking about, oh, well, they can get this service and that service, and it takes a village. Nah, how about the parents be responsible? How about that? If you're already struggling, then why compound your problems by having more of these children? Look, there's more to that video right there, but I'll leave it right there. As I close, I want to say this. I understand how there can be desperation that sets in, but I also understand there's a certain thing called personal accountability and responsibility. I don't think that this person's trouble started with the first kid. It's probably been an ongoing thing for a while, and that whole McDonald's hustle has been around for ages. And sometimes things happen to kids when you leave them in places where they really shouldn't be. Just unsupervised in a play area, leaving them at a playground, something like that. And you're wondering why there's so many missing children. Because they're looking for vulnerable kids in situations like that, where they're not being actively monitored by their parents or a guardian, a babysitter or something like that. Leaving them at a playground, leaving them in the McDonald's, leaving them here, leaving them there. And you're wondering why bad things happen. I'm not really buying the whole excuse. And then some people talking about, oh, well, we got to hire him. Hire him to do what? How are you going to hire him if he has no way to take care of his kids? So once he actually gets the job, where the kids going to go? And what kind of job will he get that will enable him to be able to take care of the kids with childcare? How much does that cost? He's still going to be in a bad situation. So either way, he's got to solve that. You can't just leave kids at a McDonald's, because if that was the case, then everybody would do it. And again, McDonald's is not a daycare. It's not a babysitter. It is not childcare. It is a restaurant. And if you're leaving your kids there for hours, unattended, by themselves, the police should be called on you. Now, I don't know what the penalty should be, but what I do know is that you should not leave your kids alone in that situation. And I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your opinion about the father who left his kids, again, ages 10, 6, and 1, alone at the McDonald's? Was it not really a big deal? Is it a big deal? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. I'm not a fan of this at all. And I think it kind of boils down to the responsibility of the parents. You got 3 kids and can't take care of them. Apparently, you can't afford a babysitter. You're leaving them at the McDonald's. You got to be able to fix whatever kind of issues you have going on behind the scenes, things that we don't know as a general public. Take care of that. And then you will have to leave your kids at the McDonald's to go on a job interview or whatever you're doing. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.